You've seen him before. Maybe you've been him before. The man who walks into a room and something shifts. The air changes. Women notice. Not because he's the loudest or the richest or the best looking, but because when he looks at a woman, she stops being invisible. For the first time in her life, someone sees her not as a mother, not as a professional, not as a good girl, but as a woman, desired, dangerous, alive. And you hate him for it, don't you? Because while you were being respectful, being patient, being a gentleman, he walked in and took everything you wanted. He didn't ask permission. He didn't wait his turn. He didn't play by the rules. And she didn't choose you. She chose the man who made her feel like the world was burning and only he could save her from the flames. Robert Greene calls him the Rake. And if you've ever watched a woman destroy her life for someone who was clearly wrong for her, you've witnessed his power. The question isn't whether this archetype exists. The question is, why does he win? And why do the women who fall for him keep falling, even after he's burned them to ash? Because the Rake understands something most men are terrified to admit. Women don't want to be respected into desire. They want to be wanted, hunted, consumed. And the Rake, he's willing to drown for them, even if it's all a performance. Let's be clear about what the Rake actually is. He's not just a player. He's not just a smooth talker. The Rake is a man whose entire existence revolves around the pursuit and pleasure of women. He is obsessed, not with one woman, but with the experience of desire itself. He lives recklessly, dangerously. He doesn't care about consequences, careers, or tomorrow. Only now, only her, only this. And women sense it immediately, because most men approach women with an agenda. They want something, a relationship, validation, sex as a transaction. But the Rake, he doesn't want something from her. Softly, he wants her, all of her, her body, her secrets, her darkness. He wants to unwrap every layer of who she is and destroy it beautifully. Think of fire. It doesn't apologize for burning. It doesn't ask if you want warmth. It just is, and you either step closer, knowing you'll get burned, or you stand in the cold alone. The Rake is that fire, and women, they're so tired of the cold. Society tells women to be careful, to be modest, to suppress their sexuality, to be mothers, professionals, good daughters. And then the Rake walks in and says, "Fuck all of that. I see who you really are, and I want that woman." Do you understand how intoxicating that is? To be seen, to be wanted not despite your darkness, but because of it. Measured, thoughtful. Greene writes, "The Rake is the man who cannot be satisfied with one conquest. His desire is persistent, and he is always on the prowl. He makes no apologies for his appetites, and lives only for pleasure." But here's the crucial part. He doesn't hide it. He doesn't pretend to be safe. He doesn't promise forever. Softly and paradoxically, that honesty, that reckless transparency, that's what makes him irresistible. Intense, building. So why does this work? Why do intelligent, successful, self-aware women throw away everything for a man who openly admits he'll destroy them? Because the Rake offers something modern society has completely strangled. Passion. Not the Hallmark movie version, not the love is patient, love is kind bullshit.
real passion, the kind that feels like dying and being reborn at the same time. Haunted, observant. Most women spend their entire lives being told their desire is dangerous, that wanting too much makes them a slut, that needing attention makes them broken. And then the rake walks in and says, "Fuck all of that. I see who you really are, and I want that woman." Do you understand how intoxicating that is? To be seen, to be wanted, not despite your darkness, but because of it. Sharp. Here's the psychology. The rake creates what's called intermittent reinforcement, but not in the way you think. No, he gives everything. Total presence, complete focus, undivided attention. But it's temporary, because his nature is to move on, to chase the next conquest. And women know this going in. That's the fucked up part. They know he'll leave, and they choose him anyway. Because intensity beats longevity in the realm of memory. Would you rather have 50 years of lukewarm companionship, or 6 months where you felt like the sun revolved around you? Most people won't admit it. They'd choose the 6 months. Because we remember peaks, not averages. We remember the night he showed up at her door in the rain, the way he looked at her like she was the only person in the universe. Softly, the way he whispered things that made her forget her own name. And what happens when someone ignores this archetype? When a man tries to seduce a woman through logic, through stability, through being the good choice, but he becomes invisible, because he's offering a resume when she wants a story. He's offering security when she craves danger. Not physical danger, sharp, emotional danger. The risk of feeling too much, of wanting too much, of being too much.
Look at Casanova, the most famous rake in history. He wasn't the richest man, he wasn't royalty, he was a writer, a gambler, a con man who moved through Europe seducing women from every social class. And you know what made him legendary? It wasn't his looks, it wasn't his technique, it was his attention. When he was with a woman, she was his entire world. He studied her, learned her, made her feel like she was the protagonist of the greatest love story ever written. And when it ended, she was left with a memory so vivid, so intoxicating, that every man after him felt like a shadow. Greene quotes a woman about Casanova. "When he looked at me, I felt I was the only woman in the room, in the city, in the world." That's the magic. That's the drug. And here's what men don't understand. The rake doesn't fake this. In the moment, he means it. That's why it works. He's not pretending to be obsessed with her. He genuinely is. It's just that his obsessions don't last. They burn bright and fast, and by the time she realizes the fire is dying, she's already been consumed. And there's another layer. The rake gives women permission to explore their shadow, the parts of themselves society has shamed. He doesn't judge her for wanting rough sex, for having fantasies, for being angry, jealous, possessive, wild. He celebrates it. He says, "Yes, be that. I want all of you, including the parts you hate about yourself." And when someone accepts your darkness, you'll follow them into hell. Think about Lord Byron, a poet who slept with hundreds of women, including married noblewomen who risked everything for him. He was broke, he had a clubfoot, he was moody, narcissistic, and emotionally unstable. By modern standards, he should have been alone.
But women destroyed their reputations, left their husbands, ran away from their families, just to have a piece of him. Why? Because he made them feel like they were characters in an epic tragedy. Not boring wives, not dutiful daughters, but heroines willing to die for love. And that's the core wound the Rake exploits. Women are taught from birth to be useful, to serve, to nurture, to make themselves smaller so others can be comfortable. And the Rake says, fuck that. Be selfish, take what you want, burn it all down. And for women who've spent their entire lives being good, that permission is more seductive than any words or gifts or promises. So, how do you use this? And how do you protect yourself from someone using it on you or on someone you care about? First, understand what the Rake actually does. He doesn't chase every woman. He's selective. He chooses women who are hungry, women who feel unseen in their current lives, women in stale marriages, women stuck in corporate jobs, women who've forgotten what it feels like to be desired. And then he offers them an escape, not through logic, through feeling. If you want to embody this energy, and I'm not saying you should, but if you choose to, here's what it requires. Total presence. When you're with her, your phone doesn't exist, your problems don't exist, the rest of the world disappears. You ask questions no one else asks, you notice details no one else sees. The way she bites her lip when she's nervous, the scar on her hand she never talks about, the dream she gave up when she was 22. You make her feel studied, known, seen. Second, you have to be willing to risk. The Rake doesn't play it safe. He doesn't send boring texts. He doesn't ask, "What are you up to?" He shows up at her door unannounced. He takes her somewhere she's never been. He says things that are too honest, too raw, too real. And yes, sometimes it crashes and burns, but when it works, it creates a memory she'll carry forever. Example: you meet a woman at a work event. Most guys would get her number, wait 3 days, send a "hey" text. Boring, forgettable, dead on arrival. But the Rake, he talks to her for 3 hours straight. He doesn't care about networking. He doesn't care about looking professional. He's fascinated by her. And before the night ends, he says something like, "I don't usually do this, but I have to see you again. Tomorrow. No games. I want to know everything about you." Direct, intense, dangerous. And if she's the right woman, she'll say yes, because finally, someone is willing to want her that openly. But here's the ethical line. The Rake can be destructive when he lies about his intentions, when he promises forever but means next week, when he makes a woman believe she's the only one when there are 3 others getting the same treatment. Coldly, that's not seduction, that's cruelty. The true Rake is honest about his nature. He doesn't hide his appetite. He doesn't promise monogamy if that's not who he is. He says, "This is who I am. I will consume you, and then I will move on. Choose accordingly." Now, protection. If you suspect someone in your life, a friend, a sister, a partner, is caught in the Rake's web, here's what you need to know. You can't logic someone out of a feeling they didn't logic themselves into. If you say he's bad for you, she'll defend him. If you say he's using you, she'll say you don't understand. Because she knows he's dangerous. That's the point. What you can do is ask questions that create self-awareness. When you're with him, do you feel more like yourself or less? Does this relationship make your life bigger or smaller? If your daughter was in this situation, what would you tell her? Don't judge, don't lecture, just plant seeds, because the rake's power is in the intensity of the experience, and intensity, by definition, can't last. When the high fades, reality returns, and she'll need someone who didn't say, "I told you so." If you're being targeted by someone using these tactics, yes, it happens to men too, here's your defense. Recognize the pattern. They're making you feel like the most important person in their world. They're asking deep questions. They're creating intense experiences. They're moving fast. Ask yourself, is this sustainable? Because if someone is love-bombing you, if the intensity feels too good to be true, coldly, it probably is. The real question is, are they offering you a relationship or a performance? And if you've been the rake, if you've left a trail of broken hearts behind you, you need to ask yourself why. Is it because you genuinely live for pleasure and passion, or is it because you're running from something? The true rake owns his nature. He doesn't apologize, but he also doesn't need to destroy people to feel alive. There's a difference between intensity and cruelty, between seduction and manipulation. And if you don't know the difference, you're not a rake. You're just broken.
Real-world scenario. You're in a relationship. It's stable, comfortable. And then you meet someone at a conference who sees you in a way your partner doesn't. They're asking about your dreams, your regrets, the person you were before life domesticated you. And you feel that pull, that electricity, that sense of being alive again. What do? The rake energy would say, pursue it, bird it all down. Life is short. Passion matters more than stability. And maybe that's true for you. Maybe you're in a dead relationship and this is the wake-up call you needed. But before you detonate your life, ask yourself, am I chasing this person or am I chasing the feeling they've awakened in me? Because if it's the feeling, you can create that in your current life. You can bring that intensity, that presence, that aliveness into your existing relationship. But if you're genuinely drawn to them, not just the escape they represent, then you owe everyone involved the truth, including yourself. Another scenario. You're single. You meet someone who embodies rake energy. They're charismatic, intense, completely present with you. They make you feel things you haven't felt in years. And your logical brain is screaming, this person is going to hurt you. What do? You're going to do it anyway, aren't you? Because the rational choice is to walk away, to protect yourself, to choose someone safe. But the rake offers something rare, a story. And humans need stories more than we need safety. So if you choose to walk into the fire, at least do it with your eyes open. Know that it will end, know that it will hurt, but also know that you'll survive, and you'll have a memory that most people will never experience. Is that trade worth it? Only you can answer that. Here's the ultimate protection strategy, whether you're male or female. Build a life so rich, so full, so interesting that no single person can become your entire world. The rake only has power over people who are starving. If you're already fed, if you have purpose, community, passion, self-respect, then the rake is just entertainment, a fun chapter, not the whole book. But if you're empty, if you're lonely, if you've forgotten who you are, you'll give him everything, and he'll take it, because that's his nature. The rake doesn't apologize for who he is. He burns bright. He lives for pleasure. He makes people feel things they've forgotten how to feel. And yes, he leaves destruction in his wake. But here's the uncomfortable truth no one wants to say out loud. The people he destroys, they chose to be destroyed. They saw the fire, they felt the heat, and they stepped closer anyway. Because some people would rather burn for 6 months than freeze for 50 years. And there's a kind of brutal honesty in that choice. The rake doesn't lie about who he is. He doesn't promise forever. He offers now, total, complete, consuming. And when it ends, and it always ends, you're left with ashes. But at least they're warm. So if you're going to embody this energy, own it. Don't be the guy who pretends to be safe and then breaks hearts. Don't be the woman who plays innocent and then ruins lives. Be honest about your hunger, your appetite, your inability to be contained. Because the real crime isn't being the rake. The real crime is being the rake and lying about it. And if you're on the receiving end of this power, if someone is making you feel alive in ways you didn't know were possible, ask yourself one question. Are they showing you who you could become, or are they just showing you what you've been missing? Because the rake doesn't create desire. He just reveals what was already there. The hunger you've been denying, the wildness you've been suppressing, the version of yourself you've been too scared to become. And once you've seen that version of yourself, you can never unsee it. The rake makes women feel alive, and then destroys them. But maybe destruction is just another word for transformation. Maybe the old version of you had to burn so the real one could rise from the ashes. Or maybe that's just what we tell ourselves to make the pain mean something. So here's what you need to ask yourself tonight. Are you the fire? Or are you the one still standing in the cold, wondering what warmth feels like? Choose carefully, because once you step into the flames, there's no coming back.